Prova? Ok. Possiamo partire?
I think we can start.
Con ritardo. Allora,
We are a bit late, so we're going to start now. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
anche se non ho la delega me la prendo. Il benvenuto
I welcome you from all the organization, from REAS,
al suo massimo splendore.
which today
Una fiera
organized something incredible. They managed to put together a lot of technology.
Con largo piacere tante famiglie, tanti nonni, tanti bambini, tanti ragazzi.
I see a lot of families, youngsters, adults, and people from the sectors.
Qui alle mie spalle, o meglio, c'era prima. Si tratta di fare un po' il punto sullo
Today
stato
we are
dell'arte,
going
su
to
qualche
try to
prospettiva
analyze the
in materia
situation
di
and the perspective
di soccorso,
for what concerns the rescue interventions on an international
Allora,
level.
questa prima tornata, diciamo così, di questo pomeriggio di lavori sarà un po' così. Allora, qui vicino a me c'è il dottor
This
Federico
afternoon we
Federighi,
hear
che sostituisce
Federico
il
Federighi,
Sisto Russo,
who will
è
replace
direttore del
Sisto
Max
Russo,
Emergente di Ares
director
Lazio, consulente
of
del capo dipartimento di materie
the Voluntary
sanitarie.
National System Resources of
Fabrizio
Lazio.
Curcio,
Then we have
che è il capo della
Francesco
protezione
Curcio,
civile italiana,
the head of the Civil Protection
accanto a lui
in Italy.
Andrei Kartish,
Then
consul
we have Andrea
generale
Cartis,
dell'Ucraina.
Consul General of Ukraine, and I think we have to welcome him in a very particular way, so let's stand up, everyone.
Gli facciamo sentire un po' di affetto oltre che di stima.
We need to express our affection and esteem towards him.
It's okay? Yeah?
Benissimo. Allora, Fabrizio Curcio, tocca a lei.
So I will now give the floor to Fabrizio Curcio.
Siamo partiti caldi, mi piace.
Stay close to
Dopo pranzo del sabato così.
I think we are very enthusiastic, and I think it's very nice to see everyone so enthusiastic. Thank you, Gianni Bonfadini, and thank you all to all my colleagues who will participate today. I particularly want to say thank you to Andrea Cartish, and I would like to tell him that everything that we are seeing here is something that carried out a very important operation. We have volunteers, doctors, operational structures that managed to do something that we are very proud of. We've done this operation with all our passion, and we have done it for a very good cause. So I'm honored today to be here today to speak on behalf of this system. And then today you would also be able to see all the intelligence, all the organization that we managed to carry out in a very delicate situation. I would like to thank REAS for inviting me to this conference. REAS is very important for the civil protection system, and we've seen it today with all the stands, all the people here participating to this conference. And it's enough to walk around this place to see how the system is evolving on a national level and on an international level. So I think we really need to thank and appreciate REA's work. When we thought about what to talk about today and what points to focus on, because we definitely have a lot of subjects to cover, especially this year, which was very difficult, and when we had to face a lot of problems, a lot of critical moments. So we had to choose one subject, and this subject had to be a symbol a benchmark of all our work, all our system,
collettivo importante
to share with you today.
su fare una riflessione. E allora ci siamo concentrati su quello che può essere un
So we decided to focus on this very important and strategic subject, even on an international level.
nazionale, cioè che tenesse conto un po' di tutte queste riflessioni. Ed è così che è nato il confronto della riunione.
And that's why we chose to talk about Medevac and Disevac in the international emergencies, in particular focusing about on the current situation and on the future perspectives. And I will particularly will be focusing on the national level, because the international side is very important, but we've really managed to do a great work here in Italy.
Questa breve, introduzione, un po' quella che è la storia che abbiamo
So in my speech, I will try to share with you all the story that we shared together, all the work that we've done in the past, together with the civil protection and with all those that are part of this system. It's a story that is born from the relationships between civil protection and the healthcare system, and it's not a very old story, because it's actually quite new. After the earthquake of 2009, we tried to focus on this relationship, we tried to improve it, and we tried to develop it in the best way possible. But this system and this relationship didn't have a very clear procedure. Instead, this is something that we've done over time. We developed a true path that it was not simple, but it was very important and very passionate. And this is how the directives that we managed to approve and implement were born. In particular, we managed to focus on two sectors. The first one was the identification of the central for the rescue system, what is called CROSS, which was very important and that we will talk about today. In that directive, we also developed the idea of health reference, and this is because the civil protection needed some points of reference within the healthcare systems, and it was something that it was really needed, and that's why we had to create it. The directive is of the 24th of June of 2016, and it got implemented in August 2016. So this is something quite recent, in fact. And it is also a very successful story, because we managed to implement this directive. And I'm particularly referring to Dr. Zoli, who worked a lot on the aspects of Medevac, also Dr. Gentile from Lazio region, Dr. Paolini, so a lot of people who managed to work and to dedicate themselves to. And that story basically is about the earthquake of Amatrice, because we had this instrument basically 4 days before the earthquake. And that path that we managed was unreached in 2019, because it was not a very easy year. With the new directive, which tried to respond to another need, which is the introduction of the healthcare systems and services, and how these could be useful to the civil protection system. We experimented this in 2016 and then in 2019 and even earlier. Because the country had always cared about emergencies, but it had never had a clear system and a clear plan to establish a relationship between the healthcare system and the civil protection system. So this path that we conceived together found a real lifetime test with the emergency, with the current emergency, who is involving also the rest of the Europe. It has a very strong impact, which is quite different from the civil protection system, because our evacuations are different from the usual type of interventions that we do, because this is a very long-term impact, because it's been since February that we are dealing with this conflict, that we are dealing with this emergency, and it is a type of effort that we are not used to make, because we are used to very short-term interventions instead. The civil protection system today is very stressed right now, because we're used to work over weeks and months, but if it becomes a long time, then it's very difficult for us to implement all the interventions. With these new rules, we managed to introduce a new ability for our healthcare system, which now manages to work in the civil protection system as well. I'm referring to the medical world with doctors and nurses and volunteers. We also have here today colleagues from the Guardia di Finanza, which is the financial police in Italy. We also had the support of the maritime authorities. We managed then to identify the new and the right means of transport to be used, and also all the medical facilities to involve. And this is what we started, and this is what we implemented in this emergency. Today we'll have the opportunity to follow all the different steps about what we've done. This is what we are going to talk about today, what my colleagues will talk about today. We spent a lot of nights working together, especially with Federico, Dr. Federico, trying to create a relationship between the healthcare system and the civil protection system. So we will hear his presentation, what he has to say, and then we'll hear Dr. Zoli, who was the breaking ice of this operation. He basically started the system, kick-started the operations that then we managed to reinforce and make bigger later. This is because the systems need to be forced and then needs to be made bigger. So it was very important what Andrea Zoli managed to do. After Areo, so after the region of Lombardy, we were followed by other 10 regions. Cross managed and organized all the operations, and in particular I would like to thank Paolini because he had the responsibility to manage this operation. We will also talk about the work of Guardia di Finanza by managing all the assets that were needed, because we want to definitely respect the law. We'd love to use the right financial tools, as well as our volunteering department of the Civil Protection Department, especially for what concerns disability and disability evacuation. So this path is needed to think about what we will have to do in the future. And I think it's very useful also to understand how to improve our work, how we can do even better.
Per essere, diciamo, ancora più chiaro, non solo per essere pronti in un'emergenza
And this is not just to be ready for anything that could happen in the future. I fall asleep every day, every night, to think about my country and what we can do to make everything better, to make our society better. I think that Italy has to invest in medevac, in transportability, and in all the things that we can improve. And I have a big respect towards what we do internationally. But what I really think about is what we would do if this happened to us. We would be able to implement an efficient system towards who really would need help in that case. So I would also like to add that from what I learned even the other day when I had a meeting with the Civil Protection of Czech Republic, which is now leading the presidency in the European Commission. And the medevac subject is something that I always bring up because it's a very national subject, but it's also international. So we should be able to be ready to accept even the other countries' systems and other countries' procedures so that we can learn from them. Europe has its own vision, which sometimes is similar to ours, sometimes is different, but this is part of democracy and of confrontation. So we should continue this path. We should also consider all the results that Europe has shown to us. As a European Commission, we received 1,590 medical requests, and we managed to respond to 1,355 requests. And then there is the classification on the hospital beds. We managed to give more than 300 hospital beds. Even if Germany managed to give more than 500 and is leading the classification. We will have many other tests, like the training and the tests on the sea. And I think that this type of training is always a good thing, because if it doesn't go well, we can focus on what doesn't work. So we should exploit these moments of confrontation to improve our work, improve ourselves. Then we will work on the directives to to implement them and to try to implement them even better and even more, because it's only partially implemented right now. And this is very important because we have to give our attention to who needs it.
uno può stare nei campi, questa è una cosa giusta, oltre questi obiettivi. Non siamo dappertutto allineati, non c'è problema,
We don't manage to do the same work all over Europe, but we have to continue on this path.
importante, noi la dobbiamo fare proprio sulla trasportabilità in emergenza.
And then transportability on aircrafts is very important, and is something that we should focus on in the future, because we have a lot of hospitals in Italy that are able to be efficient, and we would all like that if something happened to us or to our families, we would like to be hospitalized in the best structures and facilities in Italy. But this is something we have to work towards.
Se lo riusciamo a fare con l'Europa saremo contenti, se no lo dovremo fare da soli.
If we manage to do it alongside Europe, we will be very happy. If not, we will do it on our own.
Per far vedere che insomma il sistema
So I would really like to thank you for being here today and to give a contribution today. Thank you a lot.
Dottor Kartish, a lei.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to Dr. Kartish. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank everyone for inviting me. I'm very happy and very glad to be here. And in particular, I would like to thank you on behalf of our Ukrainian ambassador in Italy, and also from the General Consulate of Ukraine in Milan, which I represent today. I would like to focus on, in particular, on our experience as a consulate. In the consulate in Milan, we include 4 regions in the north of Italy, and these are regions that attract a lot of tourists and a lot of refugees, especially from Ukraine. Among 3 consulate representatives, we are those who manage the highest numbers of requests from Ukraine. Following Istat figures of the 1st of January, in north of Italy, there were around 130,000 Ukrainian citizens, and this was before the war. And so the northern regions had the most impact from the war created by Russia in Ukraine. Around 4 million people after this conflict moved towards the European countries, and of these, around 150,000 Ukrainian citizens came to Italy, and most of them managed to find a shelter in northern Italy. Our general consulate could rely on the solidarity of the Italian institutions during this very hard moment. And so I would really like to thank the Italian institutions, especially for being so available towards us, towards Ukrainians. and also for what concerns the financial and economic aids given to the Ukrainian citizens. A lot of kids and disabled were received in Italy, and they were given proper education. And also Italy helped us with the Ukrainian visas to stay here in Italy, so they were welcomed in this country. At the beginning of war, in our consulate in Milan, we created some call centers for the first contract with the population coming in the country, and to give them also healthcare help. Even in Rome, some Ukrainians arrived there, and they were received and welcomed. The officials in the consulate in Milan managed to deal with with hundreds of requests each day, and we never stopped working since then. The offices were transformed into hubs working for this, and in our consulate were full of stands with material to give away for the people in need, especially organizing interventions in the most affected regions in Ukraine. The General Consulate in Milan also coordinated the actions of many Ukrainian organizations in northern Italy, and their precious contribution for what concerns mediation and humanitarian aid was very appreciated. So I would really like to thank also all the companies and the enterprises that try to help by donating part of their production in terms of humanitarian aid, and they also raised funds to help Ukrainians. And I would also like to thank all those who were not indifferent to what was happening, and they managed to help us in a way or the other. After the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, the Italian authorities on a regional, on a provincial or national level, they carried out a very important work to welcome as many people as possible who were fleeing the war. On a regional level, I would like to express my appreciation for the collaboration in the very first days of the war. We appreciated all the conferences organized by the International Affairs Ministries that managed to face a lot of emergency. The role of the International Affairs Ministry in Italy was very important, very crucial. And I would like to express my appreciation as well for all the synergy that I felt and that I saw and that I witnessed. We managed to create a true mutual understanding with the Italian authorities. And this is something that was really appreciated by the people welcomed and received in Italy. And I would also like to thank the military system in Italy, who helped a lot the Ukraine is resisting and has been facing the situation for 7 months now, and they are facing thousands and thousands of dead, among which there are children and elderly. In these months, we understood that peace can't be taken for granted, and it's something that we need to fight for. By helping Ukraine and by going forward, we are showing the importance of peace and the importance of human rights, and I would really, really like to thank you.
Grazie, dottor Kartish.
Thank you, Dr. Kartish.
La parola
I will now give the floor to Federico Federighi.
Buon pomeriggio a tutti.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Delle relazioni molto interessanti, non è il caso di farvi perdere ancora tempo.
I will be very brief because there are a lot of speeches today, very important, but I would like to explain to you how we organized this afternoon at this conference.
Stabilizzazione della prima missione e
Dr. Zoli, we will talk about the first mission, then we will talk about the implementation of the first mission on a national and international level. Dr. Gentile will talk about the methods, so how we can manage a resource and use it in an international emergency.
dopo una breve pausa
After a short break, we will talk about more technical aspects, so with the intervention of the Guardia di Finanza, to explain how a very sophisticated tool can be employed in a apparently simple way. And then we will talk about CROSS, which is a very sophisticated tool and it needs to be managed by very experienced people.
è stata proiettata. E poi una perla di intelligenza e di umanità che è il modello ISEVAC.
And then we will talk about the DZEVAC model, which is very important because I think that nowhere in the world it's employed.
Ma poi lo mettiamo a disposizione di chi ha bisogno per assistere quella parte
This is used to assist that part of population that doesn't end up in hospitals.
ma quelle persone comunque non ce la fanno per conto loro e hanno bisogno di una specifica assistenza.
Those people don't manage to do anything on their own, and so they need support, they need assistance.
Sarà raccontato da Jonathan Farniente. Io direi che possiamo dare la parola a lui.
And I think that we can just go directly to the speeches. Thank you. I think this was very useful, especially for me that I was not aware of all this structure and organization of today's conference. So I thank again the doctors, and I will invite the next speakers to come and sit down here with us.
mettono a posto i cavalieri. La dottoressa Buffoni è una new entry. La sorpresa.
Dr. Buffoni is a surprise for us today,
Benissimo.
and I'm very happy she's here.
Zoli, tocca a lei. Allora,
I'll give now the
Zoli,
floor
Lombardia,
to
prima missione. Prego.
Dr. Zoli for Areu, Lombardy, to talk about the first mission.
Abbiamo per lui, dottore, circa un quarto d'ora, 14 minuti. Avanti.
Spero bene. Rispetto a quanto già anticipato,
Good afternoon,
fuori,
everyone.
ha già anticipato l'ingegner Curcio, volevo dire che
I would like to add that from 2019
sappiamo
up to today,
sicuramente rafforzato
what happened reinforced and consolidated
inizialmente
what
doveva partito finalmente da Cross, ma
had to be kick-started from the beginning, which is CROSS.
quando
Federico Federighi,
tenevo CTS,
when I was part of CTS,
di Torchiano, facevamo le nostre riunioni
and we would do all our daily meetings, basically every day, all day. And in that period, when the state of emergency was declared,
fissi lì, con il CTS abbiamo fatto
with GTS, Federico and us, we managed to
protezione civile. La sanità capisse che cos'era la cross, la sanità
show to the healthcare system what CROSS was. I'm referring to the national healthcare system. So we had to explain what CROSS was,
inserire nei decreti che
and we'd also had to introduce some aspects that were actually very crucial for us
in occasione
in the healthcare system. During the pandemics, so in the first days of March, a decree was released where the heli rescue, so the use of helicopters for rescues, was introduced.
elicotteri, quindi alla rotante e alla fissa. Prima questa cosa non era prevista né prevista.
Before, this was not included in the rescue process, and so it was something new.
Eravamo con gli uffici perché
Me and Federico had to go there and to explain the situation and to enrich the directive with these new elements.
beh, era così. Per quanto riguarda Ucraina o Ucraina,
For what concerns Ukraine,
come nasce?
I would like to speak about
Diciamo una cosa che
how the emergency mission is born.
allora sicuramente nasce attraverso il Dipartimento della Protezione Civile, nel senso che la prima cosa che
This starts
alla quale
from
abbiamo
the
fatto riferimento
Civil Protection Department,
Dipartimento di Protezione Civile. Ma eravamo ancora a livello di, non di Medelac, a livello di valutazione della situazione. e
we were
soprattutto
still
di
evaluating the situation, and then we'd also focused on the vaccinations, and all the medical
l'assegnazione del famoso
equipment for COVID.
devi poter essere assistito come cittadino italiano.
And also, we focused on the idea that the Ukrainian refugees had to be treated like as if they were Italian as soon as they arrived in our territory.
Ah. Così?
It's probably better you come over here so you can manage the presentation better.
Vabbè, adesso dici. Allora, nasce con un qui pro quo il tutto, nel senso che
It all began from a misunderstanding,
noi volessimo
because even if we wanted to respond to the civil protection requests, the president of my region asked me to carry out a medevac operation.
in particolare a favore
In particular, this operation had to be deployed towards kids
di un'associazione
that had a
anche quindi
hematological cancer.
in Ucraina, in Polonia e anche in altri paesi,
We had to cooperate with the associations that were present in the Ukrainian country. And these patients had to leave the country because the Ukrainian healthcare system was not able to deal with them anymore and to treat them properly. So within a few hours, we had to organize the logistical side of the operation,
in qualche cosa al di fuori del territorio ucraino, perché
but we also had to organize and create something outside Ukraine, but near Ukraine.
in Polonia, perché negli altri paesi
And we decided to do this in Poland because in all other countries,
importanti, in quanto oro geograficamente c'erano dei
the migration flows were not as strong as in Poland.
Si passa
Poland is the way chosen by migrants to get to Europe from the Eastern Europe.
che è stata immediatamente
So it was an operation that
un'operazione di scouting
included a scouting phase in Poland
sia con l'associazione
and also through the association in Ukraine.
immediatamente per dare una risposta immediata abbiamo
To
fatto
give a fast response, we
abituali che
used our carriers,
solitariamente garantiscono il
which managed to guarantee the transportation of teams and all the equipments.
immediato subito dopo sono stati dei
And then, right after,
che non cito ma che hanno inciso in modo profondo
there were other stakeholders who I will not mention, but that they were very crucial for the
per pazienti verso la Lombardia
operations carried out.
Italia, quindi facendo scalo
They managed to transport the patients in northern Italy, but then also spread them
trasferire questi
throughout
pazienti.
the whole country.
Ovviamente essendo da tempo nel sistema dei responsabili sanitari, dei referenti sanitari
And since I was part of the regional healthcare system,
fisicamente, quindi sono io che parlo a titolo personale perché sono il referente sanitario regionale e non
and because I am the regional referent, I talk
almeno
from a personal point of view.
di attivare immediatamente la CROSS. Quindi
I had to activate immediately CROSS
facendo.
because CROSS had to be informed about what we were doing.
Così come lo era stato per insegnare al Ministero della Salute, al Consiglio Superiore di Medicina
Exactly like we done
della Sanità,
when we had to inform the health ministry and when we showed the ministry how CROSS was crucial and how it had to be included in our operations. Medevac in 2020 was so important
esercitato questa funzione per 121 pazienti in ventilazione assistita
that it had to deal with 121 patients,
all'estero nel mese di marzo,
of which 40 were abroad in March.
è stata un qualche cosa che ha garantito
And this is something that guaranteed everything that happened
possibilità di dare delle
right after. It was not possible to respond to the crisis locally,
personalmente
so CROSS was needed to
un'altra
act on a national level.
quello su strada ferrata. Infatti siamo arrivati per fortuna ad avere il treno
That's why we managed to have a train dedicated to the healthcare system and given from the Italian government that was used for medevac operations. And on this train we have more than 20 beds of intensive care unit.
Attraverso la CROSS comunque parte la prima operazione,
Through CROSS, we managed to organize the first mission,
parte la prima operazione di scouting.
which included a scouting phase.
Deve essere invia comunque dei report
During this phase, some daily reports are sent to all the regions, and during the meetings with the civil protection, we also analyze and receive these reports.
Il primo contingente era questo. Fondamentale, non solo
The first team
assistenti, ma anche quello degli
was made of doctors, but also nurses, and in particular Ukrainian mother tongue nurses. And then there were also some experts in the logistics.
impegnate alle quali di volta in volta veniva passato il testimone perché ci si doveva muovere dove
And also, it included all the means of transportations that were deployed and used for the operations, like, for example, vans.
questo è il problema più grosso, dati clinici e documenti
But the real problem was about the healthcare information about the patients, as well as the logistical support.
Arrivo dei pazienti e delle famiglie presso i centri di accoglienza, dove? In Polonia.
The family got to the receiving centers and facilities in Poland.
Quello, l'aeroporto internazionale di Rezov, perché era
The international airport of Rezov was the first receiving facility because it was easy to get there through all the coming ways and all the access points from Ukraine.
Polonia. Come vedete Rezov è baricentro, quindi venivano presi dai vari valichi e
So it was basically easy to get the people from the borders and get them to the airport so that then they could go on the aircrafts and could be transported anywhere. These were all the access points.
punto di accoglienza di quelli che sono
This is a typical receiving facility which were organized and created over a very short period of time. But in Poland, actually, the organization was so well done that the receiving centers were very dynamic. I never seen such dynamic receiving centers. The citizens were welcomed immediately and treated immediately.
stata attivata triage
Medical assessment was activated with triage, both in the hotels which were receiving on a first access the patients, and then in the hospitals.
accolto
The patients were then welcomed. The screening was done, and then all this information were sent and shared.
questo sembra una banalità dirlo adesso, ma prima bisogna attivarlo lo scouting. Cross
But scouting has to be activated, and so CROSS and the Civil Protection Department and all the main stakeholders
senza di quello non avrebbero fatto.
couldn't have
Accolto
done it without it,
chiedendo chi aveva bisogno, non organizzando prima.
because thanks to scouting they didn't have to organize anything, they just dealt with the people received.
Un piccolo
We'll just show you a short video of the first day.
Allora, facciamo scendere direi uno alla volta. Esatto. Fa scendere, lo verifichiamo che fare controllo di polizia.
This is the first flight of the first day, and then we have the second one of the first day. The man with the grey hair and the blue pullover is just right there at the end of the room, and I would like to thank him personally before you.
ha fatto per molti dei voli, gran parte dei nostri voli, ha fatto il capo,
He was the head of our flights.
aveva la divisa aerea perché ci teneva,
He was not an employee of Areo, but he was a volunteer.
questo professionalmente
he decided to do this on a volunteering basis, even if he does this every day of his life as a job.
Ha sempre garantito volontariamente questa sua professionalità e capacità.
He basically shared his skills and his professionality to this service, and I really, really thank you for your work. Thank you, and thank you for your brief intervention. Paolo Frisoni, I will give you the floor now, and then I will give the floor to the Dr. Buffoni. Good afternoon, everyone. I thank you for being here, and I also would like to thank who invited me here, the Civil Protection Department. I've been part of this world for a short period of time. This is a very coordinated system, coordinated by the head of the civil protection system, and I think we are all proud to be part of this system as healthcare professionals. As the region of Liguria, we have a lot of excellencies like l'Istituto Casini, which helped us dealing with all the oncological kits, and the emergency operation system, the 118, managed to organize all the logistical aspects. The period of welcoming was a very long period, like we already mentioned before. We received flights for many months. And I would like to focus on the fact that the region of Liguria is the region that welcomed the most pediatric patients. Everyone thinks that we are very closed-minded as a region, but instead we are very open, we are very willing to help and altruistic, and we deal with the process that is very useful in this case of emergency. And I would actually like to give the floor to my colleague who was working on site, and I think that she will be able to express this work much better than me. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Isabella Buffoni. I'm not Andrea Moscatelli, but I work with him. I'm a pediatrician, and I work in the intensive care unit of the pediatric ward. He should have been here today to talk about the mission, because he worked personally in this mission in Poland, but I will try to do it on his behalf the best way that I can. The city of Rzeszów was our base, and it was chosen because it was only 45 minutes away from the border and 1 hour and a half from Mariupol, which was the Poland city which was the closest. In the Polish border, we can see here all the access points, and the Ukrainian refugees told us that it was very hard to go through the border, and some of them took like 12 hours to cross the border because of all the security controls and the traffic. we can see here how it was easy to reach it until a certain point, and then it was basically impossible to reach it. The Rashford airport was the strategic base of the city, especially in this historical moment. And here Andrea wanted to show you how the airport was on the 3rd of March 2022, which was the first day when he was in Rashford, and this is how it was transformed after 10 days. We can see how the military equipment and tools and means of transportations were present in all the airport and all the perimeter. It was a very important base from a military point of view for the forced arms, but also for what concerns the transportations of goods from and towards Ukraine. For what concerns the border crossing, these were organized in receiving facilities which were very well organized. Some old supermarkets and shopping centers were used to create these facilities. The kids were welcomed and registered, and then they were distributed among the different destination countries and facilities. They had already family members or friends in other European states. So they were registered, and often they were very cold, and so some clothes were given to them so that they could warm up, as well as warm food. One of these centers was dealt with an Italian person. For us and for our operation, Cross was very crucial, especially Dr. Paolini. And also Anna helped us with the transfers from airport, helping the kids to get into the airport and into the aircrafts. And for what concerns the recruiting of kids, Associazione Soleterre was very important as well. He was present in the Ukrainian territory. And then the Association St. Jude, which was an American association, which managed to give us some contacts with the Ukraine, which was very crucial for us. There were some people, in particular as well, which were who was very useful, like Dr. Silvestro, a volunteer of association. The mission consisted in identifying very ill kids and to transport them into Italy. And our strength was the transportation of kids, but also of their family, because we know very well that a kid alone is pretty much nothing, but he has a value, and in particular he is well if he is with his family. And so we were able to transport the kid and one of the parents, and also with a sibling, because that couldn't be left behind in Ukraine because the father was fighting in the war. All this was financed by the national healthcare system, and everything was dealt with and organized by the Civil Protection Department. But we also managed to transport some adults suffering from cancers, and this was very well organized and dealt with from the operations center of Cross Pistoia. There was 2 doctors and also some nurses and an interpreter. The interpreter was crucial because the Ukrainians weren't able to speak English, and so we really needed the help of an interpreter. A very important problem was what to do with these kids, and while we were waiting for the airport transfer. An hotel then managed to help us. They gave us their rooms for a very low price, and these 10 rooms were dedicated to this type of operations for 2 months. So during all the missions that we carried out and that our colleagues carried out afterwards. The kids were then transferred from the hotel to the airport with different means of transportation. When we got there, Areo had left us a car that then we gave to our colleagues after us. And then the Civil Protection of Liguria gave us a van of the Red Cross. And then when we understood that there were many kids, we were given a Disevac module with ambulances, vans and cars that we used to face all these very strong flow of kids. The transportation to Italy was carried out through aircrafts. In this case, the region of Lazio provided us with a TR-72. The region of Lombardy gave us some private aircrafts, and the region of Liguria financed a flight through Flight Angels, which is an association that finances and organizes airlines for very ill kids coming to Italy. The scouting team had to look for kids, and this was not easy because it was not easy to choose which ones to take. Not all the kids had the characteristics to be transported, and all this information was transmitted to CROSS that would organize the distribution of these kids according to the resources available. The evaluation of patients was very important and was based by some exams, some medical reports. But sometimes these documents were in the Ukrainian language, and so they were quite useless. But in this case as well, the translator was very useful. Often the kids only had a birth certificate, and when we were lucky, they also had a passport. The transportation towards the airport through all the means of transportation given by the Civil Protection, and then the access to the airport through the cargo area of the airport. And this was done to avoid that these kids would get in contact with all the other normal passengers, because they are very ill kids, and so they need to be protected. The region of Liguria organized 4 flights in total with 27 patients, and of which 24 were kids. 8 out of these were assigned to Gaslini Hospital. 25 patients in total were welcome in Liguria between March and April, and in particular it was kids suffering from blood cancer. Thank you a lot.
Domenico Antonio Gentile, viene qui? Sì.
Good evening, everyone.
Iniziare il mio racconto dell'esperienza che abbiamo maturato nel corso dell'emergenza.
I would like to start to talk about our experience in this emergency. I would like to show you some figures about what we've done, about our operations. I think they're very important, especially for Italy that was doing this for the very first time.
In questa slide trovate i numeri
In this presentation, you can see all the figures concerning Medevac operations.
realizzata. Sono stati trasportati in Italia, ricoverati presso le strutture ospedaliere italiane a circa
235 patients were transported in Italy through 36 Medevac missions. Lazio, with its Medevac module, organized by the Guardia di Finanza and the healthcare system on a regional level, transported 159 patients in 16 Medevac missions, which is 68% of the total patients and 45% of Medevac missions. Medevac missions were all obviously carried out throughout all the regions that gave some hospital beds, and so the flights managed to get to all the most important hospitals. The last phase was the return to Rome, and so the patients welcome in Lazio were the last one getting off the plane. Lazio has welcomed 51 patients in total, and out of these, 38 were children.
pediatri che hanno fatto parte del team sanitario dell'aereo. Questi numeri cosa ci dicono?
These figures show to us how the different stakeholders who contributed to this system, like CROSS, like the scouting teams, and Medevac, but also the medical facilities, have done a really great work. Because in 2 months, 235 patients were transferred. And we can also see the importance for the civil protection department to have this kind of resource. This is a crucial resource that gives more possibilities in terms of responses towards an emergency. This is true on a national level, but also on an international one, obviously.
Sostanzialmente il modulo di Aeromedevac
Basically, Medevac module implemented by the region of Lazio, Guardia di Finanza, wasn't born when the Ukrainian emergency started, but it was created 2 years before through an agreement with the Guardia di Finanza concerning the transferring of COVID patients. So even in this case, which we're referring to an emergency, but it's a different emergency, that could rely on a type of a system of organization that was able to respond to this type of emergency.
sua nascita, della sua nascita molto ben individuata, ha svolto fondamentalmente qualche volo di trasferimento di pazienti in alto biocontenimento, sia sul territorio nazionale.
We managed to organize some biocontainment flights,
Facendo un'analisi assieme ai militari
and then we carried out an analysis, and we realized that we had a lot of resources and we had very good potential. So we worked on making this type of resources and equipment even broader, so that the operation and the intervention would be even more efficient.
il servizio sanitario era in crisi verso un territorio che poteva accoglierli.
especially to transfer patients from countries where the healthcare system was in crisis towards a country where the healthcare system would be able to welcome them. By being able to cover very long paths, we have very good potentials, and in this case we also can rely on a very broad system of hospitals on a national level. The aircraft provided by the civil protection was able to transport different type of patients, both bedridden patients and non-ambulatory patients.
Quali sono le caratteristiche di questo modulo? Fondamentalmente sono quello che vi ho detto prima, versatilità e flessibilità.
This module is based on versatility and flexibility. And this is because this is an interagency module, so which unifies two different organizations. Through synergy and collaboration, these organizations managed to guarantee this resource. Another aspect characterizing this module is the presence of a medical team of professionals according to the type of patient. With the emergency in Ukraine, we realized that we needed to introduce also some professionals in other fields, like, for example, pediatricians. And another very important aspect is that this type of resource can operate on the whole national territory, but also on an international level. And then the aircraft, the ATR-72, was able to adapt its configuration to the type of patients transported. The healthcare team was made of a healthcare professional, a nurse, emergency nurse, and then there were also specialists, doctors and nurses, like pediatricians, as well as professionals specialized in war wounds, so that we could face all the patient needs. And then we realized as well that, especially in international missions, we needed a cultural mediator, so an interpreter, to facilitate all the communication between the health team and the patient. This team is in charge of the medical assessment and treatment of the patient, as well as the assistance during the flight, and also the collection and transmission of all the clinical information about the patient to CROSS. And basically, this was particularly crucial on flight because then at the arrival there were other professionals taking care of all of this. The region of Lazio also carried out the scouting mission, in particular in Rzeszów from the 2nd to the 9th of April 2022. And he was helped by a director of Maxi Emergency, of pediatricians, and other professionals. These are the functions of the healthcare scouting teams during the stay in Rzeszów, but I'm not going to focus on this because these were already analyzed by my colleagues before me. And then I would like to end my presentation with this slide, which represents all the everything that we learned from this experience. This is a very long experience, like we already said, especially in the Italian context. And so we realized that it is crucial to be able to rely on this type of resources.
La necessità che questa risorsa possa essere strutturata attraverso un percorso che
And this resource needs to be structured in a way that a real team is in place, like, for example, a medical team, but also a flight team.
che è estremamente importante deve passare attraverso la redazione di procedure condivise.
So this has to be done through a procedure elaboration and through a daily interventions of training, so that the whole system is kept in place properly. At the moment, the training consists of 2 days, carried out by Guardia di Finanza, and this is done for both for the healthcare team and the flight team, and it concerns medevac operations and biocontainment operations, considering all the equipment present on the flight. This training also concerns the type of aircraft which can transport very ill patients and also ambulatory or non-ambulatory patients. And it is important to have all the doctors that could be, and all the professionals that could be useful to face all the different patients' needs, as well as a very cohesive scouting team, because they managed to organize and deal with the structure of the aircraft and the distribution of these. It is crucial, in fact, that these aircrafts are full, and they usually contain up to 50 people sitting down and 10 people bedridden. And I would like to thank you for your attention.
Allora, direi che considerando un po' i tempi e le relazioni che abbiamo davanti, saltiamo la pausa, facciamolo.
We are going to skip the break, and we will just give the floor directly to the next speaker.
Il secondo giro, quindi Tommaso Santillo, Piero Paolini, Jonathan Fatichenti.
Tommaso Santillo, Piero Paolini, Jonathan Fatichenti.
Ingegnere, è stato un piacere. Cambio dei cavalieri. Ci siamo? Sì? Tutti presenti. Prego. Tenente colonnello, tocca a lei.
Buonasera a tutti.
Lieutenant Colonel, I give you the floor. Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank the Civil Protection Department for inviting me,
Del buon esito di un'integrazione
and to be able to express the very good result resulting from the collaboration among different stakeholders.
comandante del gruppo esplorazione
I'm the commander of the
reparto di volo ad ala fissa della
Aero Maritime Exploration Group.
abbiamo una circoscrizione che ovviamente si estende a tutto il bacino del Mediterraneo,
We cover all the Mediterranean basin, And we also carry out a lot of different activities. We employ and we provide our technologies and our equipment
Mai mi sarei immaginato
to other sectors, so I would never think that I would be here
un grandissimo risultato
to talk about
in un settore che è quello del trasporto
something like this in a sector that concerns the medical and the disevac missions.
perfettamente integrati in un sistema che ha di per sé
We were perfectly integrated in a system that is very efficient.
parlerò appunto di questo sistema di protezione civile in cui la CDF
I will talk about today this civil protection department in which Guardia di Finanza was integrated, about all the means of transportations that we use and provide,
volo fatto
and also about the flight for Medevac and Disevac.
la legge 225 del 92
Law 225 of 1992
Guardia di Finanza siamo
defines the
parte come appendice
the presence of Guardia di Finanza in the National Civil Protection Service. In fact, we are completely part of the civil protection system.
quindi è una percezione molto importante anche
As you can see today,
rappresentare soltanto un'istituzione, ma proprio a livello umano, a livello capillare si vede
and today I could see many families involved and present, and I think it's very touching to see you here today with us.
operativo per la gestione delle emergenze di protezione civile che è stato redatto
And also, there is an operational manual for civil protection emergency management to coordinate all these type of coordinations.
questo è il flusso di funzionamento, il comando generale, cioè il terzo reparto,
This is how the unit functions.
la centrale operativa
We have a central unit
gestisce anche le attività Medevac e DISA.
which manages all the Disevac and Medevac operations, which are dealt with the Aeronaval Operations Command within Guardia di Finanza. These are the aircrafts used in this type of operations.
Sono stati messi a disposizione del sistema di protezione civile. Gli ultimi arrivati sono gli ATR-72, poi abbiamo P-180 avanti tutto,
There is the ATR-72, the ATR-42, and the P-180-11.
con Ares abbiamo attuato quella che è la
With ARES,
a servizio del
we managed to deal with a specificity,
ovviamente
and we integrated ourselves
orientile è un percorso formativo
through a training path, which is quite complex. We could coordinate our ability to coordinate a flight alongside a professional team of doctors and nurses, which is able to face emergencies in a non-conventional environment, like, for example, dealing with pediatric emergencies on a flight is definitely not easy.
una grandissima opera di integrazione e di formazione che è stata fatta appunto
And so we were able to create all this system through a specific training, and also with the collaboration of ARES 118.
di quelle che sono le configurazioni che i nostri velivoli hanno per questo tipo di attività.
But now let's see the configuration of our aircrafts.
All'inizio dell'esperienza di trasporto sanitario fatto
If at the beginning of the COVID emergency, where the biocontainment transportation was linked to the transportation of COVID patients, in this case, this configuration was exceptional because we managed to convert an aircraft
un'autorizzazione temporanea offerta da
through a temporary authorization of Armerio,
certifica tutte queste riconfigurazioni.
Considering this experience, I have to admit that Ares and also to Dr. Gentile, Ares was very important in these operations because he was invited to the enterprise Leonardo, which produces these aircraft, to give their technical contributions to the configuration of the aircrafts.
In una linea totalmente prospettica rispetto all'attività svolta in Ucraina, quindi anche immaginando un futuro.
And this was done also by imagining a future of collaboration. The ATR-72 could have a bicontainment configuration with the two ISOARC stretchers, with the aid of 2 doctors per patient and 8 passengers in total, including the interpreter, which is crucial. In the ATR-42, we have 2 ISOARC stretchers, 2 doctors per patient and 8 passengers.
Questa è un'immagine della barella ISOARC N36/6.
In this slide, we can see the ISOARC N36-7 stretcher. I'm not going to focus on the technical aspects, but because I think that this information you can find it very easily with
ovvero non senza precise specifiche condizioni di carattere emergenziale legato all'aspetto sanitario, e prevede l'installazione di 11 barelle.
In the ATR-72, there are 11 stretchers with 2 passengers and 1 MOC, which is a center of alimentation for other equipment. For the ATR-42, there are 7 stretchers and 2 healthcare professionals. And then we have a smaller carrier, which could be used very easily for the transportation of people who need to be transported very rapidly. And Piaggio P180 has 1 stretcher up to 5 people on board, including a doctor. Or it has the possibility to have 2 stretchers, 2 healthcare professionals, and 2 other passengers. But we also have to respect some flight rules within the operational air traffic, OAT. Basically, these are priority flights that have a priority on the other normal flights of the general air traffic. This type of priority allows us to get to our destination earlier, and this helps us to face the emergency, in particular for what concerns people who are in need of getting to the destination as soon as possible. On the 28th of February of 2022, the Italian ministries declared the state of emergency to give assistance and rescue to the Ukraine population. The civil protection defined the activity of coordination and management of the health emergency. And the Guardia di Finanza is providing its aircrafts to be employed in these type of missions. We carried out 16 humanitarian flights, 123 and 15 minutes of flight, transferring 159 patients and 177 accompanying people. All of this was done through a very efficient organization system with COAO, Civil Protection, ARES, and I would also like to stress the professionality of all these stakeholders, but also a versatility and a very fast intervention. And this is very important because obviously this can't be in spite of the professionality, but we managed to do both. These are some images of the interventions. Thank you very much for your attention. I now give the floor to Dr. Piero Paolini. Good afternoon, everyone. I will try to give you a brief idea of our experience.
Allora, non so se tutti poi hanno chiaro così cosa sia la CROSS, per cui io ho messo due slide.
I don't know if you all know what CROSS is, so I will try to explain to you, to give you an idea of what it does. CROSS is part of a directive, and we had the honor today to have Federico Federighi, who conceived this system.
È prevista stiano all'interno della centrale operativa che devono avere risorse, tecnologie, eccetera, eccetera, e poi devono
The CROSS has to have some technologies, and they have to stay in a operations center unit. But how does it work? It works like an operations unit. Obviously, it doesn't have the timing of an operations unit, but if there is a problem in the healthcare system where there are not enough resources, then the Civil Protection Department is called up and it decides to activate the CROSS. And CROSS basically gets in contact with the regional healthcare system. So basically what CROSS does is to ask the healthcare referents what they need, and they ask the other referents to provide help. Before these emergencies of the COVID and the Ukrainian ones, we had decided to share some forms in order to organize better the availability of hospital beds. Obviously, it didn't just concern the beds, the hospital beds, but also all other type of documents, all other means of transportation, like helicopters, ambulances, So all a series of equipment and healthcare professionals to be made available for the affected region. Then there was the pandemics, there was the Ukrainian emergency, and this was basically adapted to the different situations. These hospital beds are included in a daily report, and this report is sent every day directly to the department, as well as to the health ministry. On an international level, medevac missions were already carried out, like for example in Albania in November 2019. There were some transferring of patients in Apulia. And then there was the pandemics, and like we said before, there was an international mission, a medevac mission, but in that case we would transfer the patients abroad. There was a distribution of patients in all of Italy, but also these patients would be transferred in Germany with Lufthansa aircrafts and other airlines. Torino Cross managed to transfer some patients from Romania linked to the pandemics. Some of these patients went to Verona and some others to the region of Lazio. We were also activated for France, but then at the end these operations didn't go through. And in this period, we got inspiration from Lombardy and we started to use these forms to assess patients, to understand the needs of the patients during transportation and even during the stay, their hospitalization in the medical facilities. And then we organized the medevac operations for Ukraine. We activated the system on the 1st of March of 2022.
Questi sono i numeri. La stragrande maggioranza di questi pazienti sono stati trasportati.
Most of these patients were transported with aircrafts, but there were also some patients who got here by cars or by vans. 68% of transported patients were transported with Guardia di Finanza carriers. So it is a very intense work, a lot of work that was done, but there were also some other carriers. This is the period in which we had these teams and in which we collaborated on a daily basis. We were doing a daily meeting at 6 p.m. every day with the healthcare team on site, and also by using WhatsApp and some calls through which we managed to share information immediately. We were also sharing information about patients, and so the teams could be able to transfer the patients with all the documents and all the information, so that we kept the contact between us.
Dopo ne parlerà sicuramente Jonathan molto più di me, Jonathan Faticenti.
Jonathan Faticenti will probably speak about this better later, but I would like to mention the importance of this module, of this resource, which was used to take these patients, bring them to the hotel in Rzeszów and then to the airport. They were obviously participating to the meeting to organize all of this. These were the patients, and you can see that most of them were pediatric patients, and in particular, children suffering from cancer. For what concerns the departing airports, most of them were coming from Rzeszów airport, but then some of them from Warsaw, also to Cracovia, so Romanian and Moldova. But because Moldova was not part of the European Union, the Romanian airport was chosen. And then there are the airports of arrival in Italy. There are many, but these are basically the main ones. And then there were two main hubs. One was in Bologna, and then the other one was in Rome. But then there were some aircrafts going to Sicily actually as well, because we can see that basically all the regions, or at least all the regions that had the bed availability, managed to get involved in these operations. And for this, I would like to thank all the regional referents who were very important in these operations and missions. There was the assessment and availability of 2,038 hospital beds. This is the story of a 7-year-old child which experienced a bomb attack to his house, and his parents had died, and he was found wounded. He was transported through a aircraft, and he went through a surgery in Padua, and this was a successful surgery. You can see here some images that you saw before already, and about boarding and disembarking of aircrafts.
Stiamo seguendo su incarico da parte del Dipartimento di Protezione Civile, ma perché lo chiede continuamente il Ministero della Salute ucraina, il follow-up di questi pazienti.
And we are also dealing with the follow-up of patients. Basically, the health ministry in Ukraine want to know information about these patients, what they want to know, how is everything going, if they are well, if they are dealt with well. And there are some patients also returning to Ukraine, or people asking to know about the patients. At the end of May, this health team ended their operations, and so we had to find another way to have information, to get information about these patients. And so we had to find another way. We drafted some new forms with all the information that were useful to understand how the patients were doing. And then there is also a video system, which is basically an application that allows us to see the patient, but we never actually used it. Still, it is a resource that we have. During the Ukraine crisis, there was also the medevac for Libya.
in una città a sud, in un villaggio.
there was an explosion in a village in the southern country, and this created a lot of problems, and there were a lot of wounded people.
Di fondi per quanto riguarda il ristoro delle regioni per il ricovero di questi pazienti. E anche in questo caso una cabina di regia piuttosto complessa.
Even in this case, the
a Tripoli, ma poi successivamente
Libya embassy in Tripoli was very crucial,
avevamo
especially with the relationship with the Air Force in Italy.
approntato un aereo
We had found some hospital beds, and so we organized an aircraft
che avevamo allestito con materiale sanitario.
leaving from Pisa. These aircraft were equipped with all the medications and medical system and equipments to go and rescue 4 patients.
Terapia intensiva, quindi intubati, ventilati. Avevamo fatto un team, c'erano
We had organized a team with military and health professionals
intervisti, un esperto di ustioni e infermieri del
and nurses.
alla fine
But at the end,
prima della partenza molti di questi
a few hours before leaving, a lot of these patients died.
percorso per molti giorni, questi pazienti sono deceduti, alla fine sono andati sotto solo i militari.
And so we just sent the military to transport these patients.
Nel nord Italia è stato fermato a Roma, e queste sono le destinazioni di questi 4 pazienti. Questo è l'elicottero.
And this is the helicopter that got to Apulia in Bari.
Queste sono un po' di foto.
These are some pictures showing the boarding of ambulances in Tripoli.
Sia della Puglia che della Campania, e le ambulanze che hanno trasferito invece 2 pazienti che andavano a Roma. Successivamente, visto che
Following this, considering that that was also a war area,
anche dall'altra parte, da Bengasi, attraverso il consolato italiano a Bengasi, sono stati trasportati altri 3 pazienti. In questo caso
other 3 patients were transported through an aircraft provided by Libya with an healthcare system organized by them, and these were transported in these 3 regions. And there was the problem of the information about the patients as well. We got these documents which were basically unreadable and with little information. And also because in Arabic there were some words written in English but that couldn't be read because they write from right to left.
C'è la regola del 9 per quanto riguarda i pazienti ustionati, e qui la situazione sinceramente è molto migliorata, e quindi siamo riusciti ad avere questo è l'imbarco sempre dei
In some cases we managed to have some better information. It is very crucial to have relationships with institutions. In fact, the relationship with the institutions is very important in terms of relationship with the ministries, health ministry, internal affair and external affair, international affair ministries on an international level, because we need to discuss many aspects.
persone straniere che naturalmente poi passavano completamente le frontiere e quant'altro. Naturalmente un'interlocuzione continua con i ministeri della salute.
We had to interact with the Ukrainian and Polish health ministries. This was crucial because our health team, which was present in Poland, managed to be continuous, and it was very important.
L'altro aspetto, abbiamo imparato anche a lavorare con, per quanto riguarda
We also managed to work
con le RCC
with the ERCC,
che è un aspetto fondamentale nel
And this as well was crucial to carry out this type of operations, but also with ECPT, especially by creating a contact with our health teams.
Poi naturalmente con l'Italia, ma questo l'avevamo già scoperto anche per quanto riguarda la pandemia e anche con il comando operativo.
And obviously all these communications were carried out with Italy as well.
Due aspetti per quanto riguarda due aspetti amministrativi. Questo è un portale di protezione civile, noi come CROSS non abbiamo accesso a questo.
This is a platform of the civil protection, and CROSS doesn't have access to this, but to have the authorization to transport patients and also to access European funds, these platforms are very important, and then Ukraine requests sends a request, the countries give an offer, and then Europe decides the distribution. CROSS has done a training course with the Health Ministry and with Europe, and this was focused on a platform. In this way we can access the information of patients because usually it is even very hard to find hospital beds. And now I would like to introduce to you the team that managed CROSS. I would really like to thank them because they have been working for 2.5 years between one emergency and the other, and they always carried out operations with passion and professionality. The directive of CROSS, I think, was very successful because it's a project conceived very well, and it's also very flexible that could be adapted to every type of situation. And I think that we should also think about training mechanisms, because we have come a long way. We have a very rich experience, and we need to transmit this and share this knowledge with everyone. Thank you very much. This applause is also for the Dr. Paolini team.
Allora, l'ultimo intervento dei relatori, Jonathan Fatichenti, prego.
And now I'll give the floor to Jonathan Fatichenti.
Grazie, buonasera a tutti.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I would like to express how glad I am to be here, and on behalf of the volunteering civil protection system. These people are able to create responses and find solutions. I would really like to thank them all, because behind my speech today there is a work of a lot of people. DISEVAC originates from the relationship between the Civil Protection Department and the volunteering organizations. It was born in one of the meetings in which Dr. Federighi and Tiziani took part of, and they thought what they could do, and they found a solution that can result in DISEVAC. DISEVAC is the evacuation of the disabled people, so it is a protected and coordinated evacuation of special care people, of people who have specific healthcare needs. The aim
attuale, quindi
is to shift from this type of system where there is a evacuation of self-sufficient people to the medical evacuation of people with urgent healthcare problems.
vanno a gravare su quello che è il servizio
So these people are forced to find a solution themselves, or they are forced to rely on the national healthcare system.
di passare a questo tipo
But DISEVAC wants to get to this type of situation where there is a self-evacuation of people, self-sufficient people, and the evacuation of disabled people, of people who are vulnerable and are not self-sufficient.
l'abbiamo pensato ovviamente immaginandolo in caso di catastrofe, era
We conceived DISEVAC thinking about the event of a disaster,
da lì il protocollo che poi è stato
and from that context we developed a protocol
costruito seguendo alcuni principi.
following some principles.
Può essere disabile anche
Any individual can be disabled, even temporarily, and for this reason it is very complex to understand
la disabilità permanente, possiamo in qualche modo
who are the people that we are referring to. So who are these people that are not self-sufficient?
delle soluzioni, delle situazioni temporanee. La disabilità dipende
The other principle is that disability also strongly depends on the environment in which the individual is placed. Emergency is often associated with panic or irrational behavior, and erroneous behavior that is harmful to oneself and others can be avoided by creating procedures in advance to be adopted in critical situations.
tre sono le principali azioni: l'individuazione,
There are three main aspects: the identification,
non convenzionale di DISEVAC, quella in Ucraina, perché DISEVAC non era pensato per quel tipo di applicazione.
and we have to think about the fact that DISEVAC was not conceived for the emergency in Ukraine, and so identification is the work of the scout team.
Non è un banale trasporto,
Then there is transportation,
è coordinato e protetto e
which is a type of coordinated and protected
trasporto della persona fisica
transport of the patient with its medical history, and which allows the continuous health care for the patient, and then the ongoing care.
possibili soluzioni.
For what concerns identification, there are two types. There is one carried out while planning. So it is a type of identification that involves the civil protection system, the healthcare system on a national level, and also the caregiver, because it is crucial to know who are these individuals so that we can plan beforehand.
E in emergenza quella che
And then there is the identification in the emergency
poco fa la scheda SVEI e l'altro soluzione.
by using the SVEI form, immediate needs assessment form.
Trasporto di un soggetto da un punto
For what concerns transportations, we are referring to a type of transportations of patients from A to B with a variable type of path. These transports has to be able to
vogliamo provare a citare l'esercitazione Freigrade
cover long distances. For example, we simulated an evacuation of a medical facility which has a destination, Piedmont,
ma soprattutto anche il trasferimento della
but
storia.
also the transmission of the patient's medical history, the personal files, and the needs to the receiving facility.
Storia, le proprie necessità di assistenza che devono essere mantenute durante il percorso.
Because the needs of the patients need to be met during the journey, but also addressed once the patient is received in the destination medical facility.
L'assistenza in itinere, quella che possiamo immaginare, sono ovviamente da
Then we have
allontanare
the
il
ongoing
tutta
care,
l'assistenza alla nutrizione di trazione,
which include the comfort while waiting or traveling, the assistance for nutrition and hydration.
per l'idratazione. Se voi immaginate un trasporto Napoli-Piemonte,
If you think about the journey from Naples to Piedmont, in this journey the patient needs to be hydrated, he needs a nurse that administer the normal therapy, because we are talking about vulnerable patients.
la composizione standard del modulo è un modulo, quindi quest'idea poi viene trasformata in un modulo pensando anche alla
This results in a module
meccanismo europeo di protezione civile, e quindi si comincia a dare uno standard. Quando parliamo di
which follow a specific standard. In particular, it is a module able to transport 50 people, divided between 30 ambulatory patients, 15 non-ambulatory with wheelchair, and 5 bedridden on stretchers.
da un punto A a un punto B non definito.
So these need to be transported from A to B, and during the journey there have to be procedures and the equipments needed to guarantee that level of assistance.
C'è un coordinatore ovviamente che dirige la colonna, c'è un responsabile dell'assistenza.
Then there is a coordinator, there is the healthcare professionals, and a nurse who deals with the needs, the non-urgent needs of the patients.
L'attività Medevac, per esempio, se c'è in itinere un canale all'emergenza territoriale. Questa è la logica di ISA. Garantire il rapido riconoscimento e l'individuazione.
So we have to guarantee fast identification of special care individuals, ensures the safe and coordinated transport, and offers a proper level of care to the patient.
Torniamo a raccontare, integrare le relazioni che ci sono state poco fa per quanto riguarda
But I will try now to talk about the DISEVAC mission in Ukraine. This system was not conceived for an emergency of this kind, so we had to adapt it. So DISEVAC was added to Medevac, supporting the scout teams. On the 24th March, the cross-activated the DISEVAC activity, which was also a decision made by the Civil Protection. So in this case, DISEVAC worked alongside Medevac, even if it's two different, they have two different paths. Here we can see all the migration flows. So it worked in two steps. There was the transport and welcoming of people at the borders up to the receiving facility, which was in Rejov. And then from the receiving facility in Rejov to the air carrier that would transport them to Italy. Here we can see some images of the activity on the border. This was the way covered by the transport. We can see other images, and then there is the second part of the journey from Rezov Airport to Italy.
che le esigenze che arrivavano dallo scout team non erano
The module composition was changed as well because the number of people were different. So we tried to do more frequent journeys with less people. So we used a smaller module that would be able to do more journeys.
50 a 30 la capacità operativa del modulo ISA. In tutta l'operazione sono stati coinvolti 113 volontari, 7 mediatori.
In all the operation, there were 113 volunteers, 7 interpreters, 23 volunteers who were in charge of coordination. We covered 72 days of mission and 84,000 kilometers, and we assisted 245 patients. To end my speech, I would like to stress that in disability, emergency cannot be a synonym of improvisation or adjustment. The usual care for the person, which we provide on a daily basis in normal services, can't be negotiable in the management of a sudden event. I would like to mention the main principle of the healthcare system and the department that says we have to try to adapt the system to the patient and not to adapt the patient to the system. And this is what we, as a principle, we use behind DISEVAC. But what can we do in the future, and what are our next steps? DISEVAC is quite young as a project. He was born 1 or 2 years ago. It was tested in one training session only, and then it was sent in Poland for the Ukrainian emergency. So it needs to be revised.
Ha bisogno, e questa è un'integrazione che io ho aggiunto alle slide stanotte, avendo partecipato al convegno.
I added this slide after I participated in the conference of yesterday, and I decided to add the idea that it needs to be integrated with a multidisciplinary team.
È uno spazio sicuramente di integrazione di equipe multidisciplinari, pensando a quelle organizzazioni che hanno professionalità.
And then particularly I'm referring to the organization working in this sector. Also, we need to improve the points of contact and cooperation with the MEDEVAC operations. And considering the result, we also think that it would be time to integrate the DISEVAC interventions in the European mechanism of civil protection. Thank you a lot for your attention. I give the floor to Federico Federighi to conclude this conference. I think we heard many interesting speeches. I would like to summarize them. I will try at least. I think that Italy can be proud of what he has done by giving support to a very brave country in a difficult moment. We gave assistance to many people by transporting them at home and by taking care of them. And we managed to do this quite rapidly. But we never decreased our quality and our professionality.
Le missioni che sono state fatte in loco sono state fatte da ospedalieri centroricettisti, cioè persone nella vita
It is interesting that these missions were carried out from people that do something else in their lives. They adapted to this and they gave themselves to this cause.
internazionali, con particolare riferimento alle missioni Medivac, che però non possono prescindere da una base, un assessment.
We will do other international missions and humanitarian missions in the future for sure, but always by adapting, but also by not improvising. Guardia di Finanza explained to us how we managed to transform an aircraft conceived to do something completely different than transporting patients, and we saw how this was done. I never thought that in such a short period of time we could address such complex problems.
Sì, è vero, è molto generoso quando si ricorda che ho partecipato all'ideazione della Cross.
It's true that I conceived CROSS, but I never thought about something so complex. I was thinking about something more vague and not such an efficient and sophisticated system that was adapted to national and international needs. And the same is for the Medivac module. I think we got this point thanks to our patience and passion and intelligence and perseverance. The model that we adopted to operate in Poland was at least part of the inspiration of the hub conceived by the Civil Protection. So if I can summarize, I think that I can say that international missions actually can be carried out, and that we are able to do these missions by implementing everything that we learned, and that we will work to improve this system. We have to study, we have to improve quality, and we have to ensure coordination, collaboration. We saw, for example, the integration between Medivac and ARES, the healthcare system and the civil protection and the volunteering organizations. So we are lucky enough to have a system that is coordinated on a national level, thanks to the Civil Protection Department. Thanks to this department, we can coordinate everyone and all the other stakeholders of this sector. And now we also know that the healthcare and is a emergency intervention, but it is not only this. It is also assistance towards people who have specific needs, so we need to be very fast. In particular, we need to identify very fast these people, because someone who is ill or injured is not very easy to identify. In particularly for disabled people and for people who have social problems who are not that visible, especially in a very complex context like a war one. So we need to be able to find who are in need and who are not easy to be seen, and also after we identify them and find them, we need to assist them and address their real needs, so we have the ability to actually help them. I think today's conference was very interesting. I hope that you enjoyed this as well. And I really, really thank you, and I end this conference here. Thank you so much. Have a good day.